Good evening. We begin tonight with the volatile and deeply complex situation continuing to unfold across the Middle East. On Monday, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps confirmed that it had launched a direct attack targeting an airbase used by the United States military. According to the IRGC statement, this action was a direct and calculated response to strikes conducted by the United States over the weekend, which hit Iranian military positions along the Islamic Republic's Gulf Coast. This latest round of military action punctuates an already tense and fragile 3-month-old conflict, one that persists even as diplomatic negotiators keep channels of communication open in the search for a more durable and lasting agreement. Adding another layer to the fast-moving developments, President Donald Trump issued a public declaration asserting his belief that the Iranian leadership genuinely wants to negotiate a deal. In a social media post published late at night, the president sought to project an image of ultimate control over the situation, telling his critics to, in his own words, sit back and relax. It will all work out well in the end, it always does. This new cycle of strike and counter-strike follows what has become a deeply concerning and familiar pattern. This pattern has defined the trajectory of the conflict since a shaky and imperfect ceasefire first took effect in early April. Rather than silencing the guns and bringing a halt to the violence, the truce has instead served as an uneasy backdrop for sporadic yet carefully calibrated military exchanges between the two adversaries. All the while, painstaking diplomatic efforts aimed at securing a more comprehensive and enforceable agreement continue to drag on without a clear breakthrough. The repetitive nature of the situation is stark. A near-identical exchange of hostilities was reported just last Thursday, with both sides offering descriptions of those events that closely mirrored one another in both tone and substance. The current flashpoint was ignited by military action taken by the United States over the weekend. The United States Central Command, widely known as CENTCOM, provided a detailed account of these strikes in an official statement posted on the social media platform X. CENTCOM explained that the U.S. strikes targeting Iranian positions on the Gulf Coast were a direct and necessary response to what the command officially described as aggressive Iranian actions. According to the detailed CENTCOM statement, these actions specifically and most notably included the shootdown of a United States MQ-1 drone. The United States military maintains, with absolute clarity, that this unmanned aircraft was operating lawfully over international waters at the time it was engaged and destroyed. This point of international law remains a critical element of the U.S. justification for its subsequent military response. The response by the United States military was both swift in its execution and carefully calculated in its scope. According to the information released by CENTCOM, U.S. fighter aircraft were immediately deployed to the area, with the specific mission of neutralizing the immediate and ongoing threats. The precision strikes that followed successfully eliminated a number of high-value targets. These included Iranian air defense systems that posed a risk to aircraft, a ground control station used to coordinate hostile activities, and 2 one-way attack drones. The United States Command assessed with high confidence that these specific military assets posed a clear and present danger to both commercial shipping vessels and military ships that were transiting the critically important waterways of the region. The CENTCOM statement concluded with a firm and unambiguous declaration that the United States military will continue, without hesitation, its core mission to protect American assets, American personnel, and American national interests for the entire duration of the ongoing ceasefire period. The specific target of Iran's retaliatory strike on Monday was identified by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps only in broad terms, described simply as an airbase that is utilized by the United States. The IRGC statement was deliberately crafted to avoid naming the specific military installation that was hit. This omission left a calculated degree of strategic ambiguity surrounding the exact location and scale of the impact. However, events unfolding on the ground in the region very quickly provided substantial additional context and clarity. In the nation of Kuwait, a country that hosts a major and strategically vital United States military presence, air defense systems were actively engaged in intercepting incoming missile and drone attacks on Monday. Simultaneously, Kuwait's state news agency, Kuna, reported that air raid sirens were sounding loudly and continuously across multiple areas of the country. These reports painted a clear and alarming picture of a nation coming under a direct and immediate aerial threat, a threat inextricably linked to the broader and widening regional conflagration. This ongoing war, a conflict that was launched on February 28th by a military coalition composed of the United States and Israel, has now exacted a devastating and truly catastrophic human toll. Thousands of people have been killed since the first bombs fell and the first ground operations began. The vast and overwhelming majority of these casualties have been concentrated, tragically, within the borders of Iran and Lebanon. Beyond the immediate and catastrophic loss of human life, this conflict has sent powerful and deeply destabilizing economic shockwaves rippling across the entire globe. The most significant and widely felt economic disruption has been a sharp, sustained, and deeply painful increase in global energy prices. This acute inflationary pressure is a direct and predictable result of Iran's effective and strategically motivated closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow maritime choke point is an artery of global commerce through which a significant percentage of the entire world's seaborne oil trade must pass. This stark economic reality now adds immense and unrelenting pressure to every single diplomatic calculation being made by leaders around the world. In a lengthy and characteristically informal social media post that was published shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning, President Trump made no explicit or direct mention whatsoever of the ongoing exchange of military hostilities that had transpired over the preceding 48 hours. Instead, he chose to use his platform to reiterate his as yet unverified claim that Iran's leadership is, in his assessment, genuinely motivated to strike a comprehensive agreement. The president also used this late-night post to launch a broad and pointed attack against his domestic political opponents. He deployed a disparaging nickname to refer to members of the Democratic Party and simultaneously expressed his deep frustration with those he labeled as what he called seemingly unpatriotic Republicans. He constructed a narrative of a leader who is confronting a unique and formidable set of challenges, arguing directly that his political adversaries are deliberately making it significantly more difficult for him to successfully navigate what he himself has described as one of the most dangerous foreign policy crises of his entire presidency. His social media post explicitly and forcefully called out what he characterized as the constant and relentlessly negative commentary emanating from what he termed political hacks. He claims these critics attack his every decision, telling him to move faster, to move slower, to escalate the conflict to a full-scale war, or to avoid war entirely. His overarching message to the public was a clear and direct command to ignore the noise of the political debate, to place their trust in his personal process, and to expect a successful final resolution to the crisis. He framed his past history of deal-making as a guaranteed and reliable predictor of future success. This intense domestic political pressure is not occurring in a vacuum. The president is under immense and growing strain to deliver a tangible and concrete outcome that directly and positively benefits the American consumer. The specific goal is securing the full and unconditional reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Achieving this objective is seen as absolutely critical to the task of lowering gasoline prices across the United States, ahead of the fast-approaching November congressional elections. Public opinion polls are increasingly and consistently showing significant voter frustration and deep-seated anxiety over the rising cost of living. This trend is transforming a complex foreign policy crisis into a direct and painful pocketbook issue that carries immense political weight. Simultaneously, the president finds himself carefully walking a political tightrope within his own Republican Party. Any action that can be perceived as a concession granted to the government in Tehran runs the very real and present risk of provoking a severe and politically damaging backlash from influential Iran hawks within his own ranks. These voices advocate forcefully for a continued posture of maximum pressure and uncompromising military deterrence against the Islamic Republic. This delicate and high-stakes political calculus at home is all unfolding against a volatile backdrop of deeply jittery and nervous global financial markets. By the time trading floors opened across Asia on Monday, the news of the latest exchange of strikes had rippled through the markets. The price of crude oil had risen sharply, climbing by approximately 2%. The lack of any visible, verifiable, or meaningful progress in the ongoing diplomatic negotiations is keeping energy traders, and indeed the entire global economy, on a knife's edge of uncertainty. The central, publicly stated, and singular objective of the United States in this war, as articulated repeatedly by President Trump, is to prevent Iran from successfully developing a nuclear weapon, using its existing and growing stockpile of highly enriched uranium. This is the stated red line of the administration. However, the official and long-standing position emanating from Tehran has been completely consistent and entirely unambiguous. The Iranian government has repeatedly, consistently, and categorically denied that it has any plans, intentions, or ambitions to pursue the development of nuclear weapons. This fundamental and seemingly intractable disagreement over Iran's ultimate strategic intentions remains a core and unresolved obstacle at the very heart of the diplomatic standoff. Beyond the central nuclear file, the two sides remain deeply and stubbornly entrenched on an extensive range of other highly complex and deeply contentious issues. At the very top of the list of Iranian demands stands the complete and verifiable lifting of the punishing and comprehensive package of economic sanctions that have for years crippled the Iranian economy and caused widespread hardship. Furthermore, the government in Tehran is demanding the immediate release of tens of billions of dollars of its own oil revenues. These vast sums of money are currently frozen in foreign bank accounts scattered around the world. These funds represent a critical financial lifeline that Iran is absolutely determined to fully repatriate, while the United States and its allies continue to view control over this money as a crucial piece of diplomatic leverage. The already narrow and treacherous diplomatic path forward is further complicated, and some seasoned observers would argue it is now completely blocked by the parallel, distinct, and rapidly escalating war being waged by Israel inside Lebanon. This military campaign is aimed squarely at Hezbollah, the powerful and heavily armed Iranian-backed militia and political party. This conflict represents a second, equally volatile and increasingly dangerous front in the wider regional crisis. The operational tempo of military operations on this front is accelerating at a concerning pace, carrying with it profound and deeply strategic implications. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a significant announcement on Sunday, stating publicly that he had issued direct and unequivocal orders for Israeli ground troops to advance even further into Lebanese territory as they continue their intense and ongoing battle against Hezbollah forces. This order for a deeper and more penetrating ground incursion marks a significant and potentially game-changing intensification of the conflict on that front. Even as the bombs continue to fall and ground troops continue to advance, a frantic and high-stakes diplomatic effort is simultaneously underway behind the scenes. The goal of this activity is to prevent a complete, total, and irreversible regional meltdown. A key and central diplomatic actor in this effort, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio, has been actively, personally, and continuously engaged in the crisis. According to information provided by a U.S. official familiar with the diplomatic exchanges, Secretary Rubio held separate, high-level, and detailed telephone conversations with both Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The primary and overriding focus of these critical calls was the current status of the ongoing diplomatic negotiations between Israel and Lebanon. The official provided details indicating that Secretary Rubio has put forward a specific and structured proposal. This proposal is explicitly designed to create the necessary diplomatic and security space for a managed, carefully calibrated, and phased reduction in the levels of violence. The plan is being framed within the administration as one that allows for what is being termed a gradual de-escalation of the conflict. This delicate, complex, and high-wire diplomatic maneuver represents a determined attempt to balance Israel's clearly stated and legitimate security imperatives with the urgent and overriding need to prevent the complete and utter collapse of the Lebanese state, an event that would almost certainly trigger a far wider and more catastrophic regional war. As we reach the midpoint of this evening's broadcast, we have established and laid out for you the dual and simultaneous reality of this multi-layered crisis. There is an active shooting war underway, characterized by direct strikes and counterstrikes between the militaries of the United States and Iran. Running in parallel, there is a separate but deeply interconnected conflict raging inside Lebanon. All of these volatile events are occurring under the long and dark shadow of fragile, ongoing, and so far unsuccessful diplomatic negotiations. In just a moment, we will continue our detailed breakdown of this rapidly developing and deteriorating situation. We will shift our focus squarely to the ground war in southern Lebanon, where a significant and historic Israeli military advance has just taken place. We will examine the devastating human cost of the fighting on that front, and we will also analyze the innovative and deadly new tactics being deployed on this evolving battlefield. We will also return to the immense economic and political pressures that are now shaping the decisions of every single actor involved in this crisis. Stay with us. That concludes the first part of our in-depth coverage this evening. To briefly recap what we have covered so far, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has confirmed a retaliatory strike on a United States airbase in response to weekend U.S. strikes on Iranian military sites along the Gulf Coast. We have detailed the sequence of these military exchanges, which are occurring under the shadow of a fragile ceasefire that has been in effect since early April. We examined President Trump's late-night social media statements, in which he expressed his belief that Iran seeks a comprehensive deal while simultaneously criticizing his domestic political opponents. We also explored the immense economic pressures driving the crisis, including the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the resulting spike in global energy prices. The core diplomatic obstacles, from Iran's nuclear program to its demands for sanctions relief, were laid out in full. When we return, we will take you directly to the ground war in southern Lebanon, where Israeli forces have made their deepest incursion in more than a quarter century. We will have full details on that historic advance, the ongoing battles, and the deadly new drone tactics reshaping this conflict. Stay with us.